Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole, and we are continuing our Centers series here today. We have been doing this series on the centers in human design for the last few weeks. This is episode 6 of the 9 centers. We've already covered the root center, the sacral center, the spleen, the solar plexus, the G center, and I think that counts for all of them. And today we are going to dive into the ego / will center / heart center. Same center, 3 different names. Ego, heart, or will center are all accepted answers for this one. So the ego center is a tiny little center that has a big job. It is the heart of the tribal circuit. So the whole goal with this series is to give you guys a walkthrough of the 9 themes that the human design system brings together. So there are 9 centers in the body graph. When you run your chart, you're going to see 9 big shapes. And then there's going to be numbers within those shapes, and then there's going to be lines connecting those shapes. At the heart of your design are the centers. The centers are so important because pretty much everything in your chart is determined by the centers that you have defined. Your strategy and your type are determined by the centers that you have or don't have defined in your chart. Your authority, which is your decision-making mechanism, is going to be determined by the centers that you have defined in your chart. All of this connects back to those 9 centers. And then we have the gates. Now there are 64 gates in the chart. 64 gates represent the sub-themes of each of the centers. So all 9 centers represent a specific theme. The centers are similar but not the same to the Hindu chakra system. So if you've taken a yoga class or gone to a meditation retreat or something, you're familiar probably with the chakra system. Only we look at it a bit differently. The traditional chakra system looks at 7 centers. For us, we break it into 9 energetic themes rather than just 7. Every single center represents some sort of theme, and whether you have your center defined or undefined determines whether you have that theme as a consistent theme in your life. These are the things that we are here to master in our lives. We are here to master because it's our energy, it's our thing. So if I have a defined center, then that's a theme that I really need to get a handle on. And then we go a level deeper. The channels, those lines that connect the centers together, the channels are what gives the center definition or not. If you have a channel connected to a center, that means that center and the center on the other side of the channel are defined as well. They're all colored in because the channel is what gives it the consistency. It passes energy from one center to the other, so to speak. That this creates a consistent, energetic theme or just a consistent access to that energy all the time. So the channel tells us, what kind of ego do I have? Do I have 3 channels defined in my ego? Do I have 1 channel? Am I undefined in my ego? That tells us the theme and what our relationship is to it. So this is how the chart starts to tell us whether we are meant to be something all the time. We're here to transmit it. We're here to embody that energy all the time. Or are we a receiver, a receptive party to that energy? And what we mean by that is if you have an undefined ego, you're going to be more receptive and perceptive of that theme, of the theme of whatever center. But as an ego, you'd magnify and be sensitive to the themes of the ego. So in this series, we're exploring each of the centers so you get to know if it's defined in your chart. This is a theme. This is a center you want to listen to thinking, if I have the center defined, then there's something here that I'm supposed to learn about. It's something you were meant to learn to use. It's a tool in your life, so to speak. If it's going to be consistent, we want it to be consistently good, not consistently bad. So these are going to be our life lessons. The centers are going to be the themes where we're like, I'm meant to break this horse. I am meant to be able to ride this one. And then if you have an open center that we're talking about, These are going to be themes that are not yours to be all the time. They are yours to receive, to feel into, to understand from the perspective of receiving that from other people or from just the outside world in general. Now, that can sound a little heady, but when you start to work with your design and you start to realize what is you, what you are meant to be, that's the colored in stuff, versus the stuff that you are not meant to be, it tells you where maybe you're going off track. So let's talk about this in the context of the center we're talking about today. Talking about the ego center. So what's the ego center all about? In the last installment of this series, we did the G center. And I said how the G center and the ego represent what is commonly known as the heart chakra in the chakra system. So when we look at the chakra system in our 9 centers rather than the 7, in human design, that heart chakra gets split off into 2, and we get a G center and we get the ego center. And the G center feels more feminine to me. It's the center of love. It's the center of purpose and direction in life. That's what the G center is all about. Now, to me, the ego center represents more that masculine side of the heart center, which is like determination, drive, willpower. If you think about it from the traditional standpoint that the masculine energy provided for the family. So the keynote for the ego center is support. It is divine support. It is material support. So the ego center has this theme of support. And if you have that theme undefined in your chart and you are trying to be willful all the time, you're trying to be determined all the time, then that's a clue into maybe why things aren't working out for you, why things feel misaligned. Because what conditioning teaches us, and the open centers are the areas where we typically can be more easily conditioned, that the outside world tells us to be X, but we're meant to be Y. But we don't know that. So we go through life hearing this message of you should be X, you should be X, you should be X. And with the ego, it would be you should be willful, you should be determined, you should be achieving more, you should prove yourself. That's what the ego center is about, proving yourself. But if you have an open ego, you don't have anything to prove. But how you get pulled off course is the rest of the world is telling you you should prove yourself, you should be better than this. So you go and you take that bait and you chase that carrot, only you never get it because it's not yours. The common misconception with these open centers versus defined centers, you think, well, then I'm not meant to achieve, because the other thing that the ego center is known for is achievement. Success is very much associated with the ego. So people say, can I not be successful? And I always say, no, that's not at all what it means. It just means that your come from isn't going to be from you feeling like you need to prove yourself. If I get this thing, then I'll be enough. That is the trap of the open ego. So the ego can be a really beautiful center and a beautiful energy that takes care of those around them, that says, I got this, don't worry about it. And they go after what they want, and they go after what they feel they deserve. There's an innate sense of self-worth to the defined ego. It should come from within. And that does not mean that just because you have a defined ego that it's working properly, that it's in a healthy state. Because if you grew up thinking or being told that you were worthless and you have a defined ego, then it gets fixed in a unhealthy position, in a position that is less than what it's meant to be. It's short. And it gets fixed in that way, and it can be much more difficult to change something that's fixed than change something or shift something that is open. So this is what is at the heart of the heart center. It is biologically connected to the heart. The ego center is such an important center to focus on, because think about the world that we live in. We live in a world where we're taught to achieve, where we are taught to chase the next goal, where we are taught sometimes that we're nothing until we hit a certain mark, hit a certain revenue number, until we get a certain number of accolades, until we have a certain number of letters next to our name. All these ways that we prop ourselves up or cut ourselves down because we feel like we fall short. All of that comes from ego. So it's so important understanding these centers. It is so critical to understanding how you work and how you are in relationship, and whether you're in alignment relationship or misalignment relationship, with the themes of the world, your home, your community, whatever it is that you are around. And we're going to get into a little bit more about what the ego center represents. It represents tribal connections. Now, I do want to take a pause here and just mention that if you are loving this series, then I want you to know that I am running a workshop on magnetism. Now, the Activate Your Magnetism workshop, which is all about 2xing your revenue while working less. It's a one-day workshop. It will be on June 12th at 11 a.m. Central Time. There will be replays, so don't worry. You will not be shut out. All you have to do is DM me the word workshop on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Lano Official, and we will register you right there, or go to nicolelano.com/workshop, and we will register you on the website. So what we are doing inside this workshop, I know the word magnetism gets overused a little bit. We get confused with it meaning being vibey and in your power and all of this stuff, that somehow magnetism equals sexy. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're doing in this series is we're breaking down all of the 9 centers, and we're breaking down the pieces. In the workshop, I'm going to put it together for you. I'm going to let you know how the mechanics of human design work, how this makes you magnetic. I'm going to break down exactly how this all works and how you can start to use it to your advantage to start to magnetize the things that you want into your life. I was really hesitant to use that word, but I was like, that's what we're talking about. We are talking about magnetism. We are talking about attracting what we want or what's meant for us along our path of purpose in our life. And that's what we're going to discuss in this workshop. So I hope you come. DM me the word workshop on Instagram, and we will register you right there. So let's talk a little bit more about the ego center. Now, I brought up that this is part of tribal circuitry. Now, there are different themes inside the human design chart. There's individual themes, collective themes, and tribal themes. The heart of the whole tribal stream in human design is the ego. It is what fuels it, because the tribe is about support. It is about building up community. It is about taking care of those who are close to us. It's what built our societies. And think about tribalism in the world right now. Tribalism comes back to the ego. One thing that I think is very interesting about all of this is that when you look at the way that the human design chart is built, how it's structured, that ego center sits in the center. It's very isolated from the rest of the body graph. It's right next to the G center, just hanging out there right in the middle, hanging off to the side like nobody will know I'm here. And has one connection to the throat that kind of rules the tribe, that kind of tells everybody it's the queen. That 45th gate in the throat center that connects to the 21st gate in the ego, that is the voice of royalty. The rulers have that voice. And it kind of tells you how the tribe gets ruled. If you think about the way that we are so tribal right now in our thinking, in our ways of being, and the ways that messaging gets passed around now, we all have tribes for better or for worse. We have political tribes, we have social tribes, we have business tribes, and that whole theme is connected to that center of the ego. What's good for my people is what the ego is saying. Now, that can be in a really high frequency or it can be in a low frequency. But I think that it's an interesting thing and an important thing to understand if we're going to talk about the ego, is that it sits at the heart of this tribal circuitry. It only cares about the individual and the tribe. It only cares about taking care of those who are close to it. Now, the ego is also about competition, willfulness. And then we get to self-hatred and self-worth. All the way from one end of the spectrum of self-hatred to the other end of believing that you are inherently worthy just for being who you are. It ranges from that entire spectrum. So the ego can cause us to take action to try to be competitive, gain wealth, to be willful. Can take action because we hate ourselves and we want to feel worthy. Or we can take action and charge what we are worth, all of these themes come down to this tiny little center right there. It's the most conditioned or most prone to conditioning center, because think about how powerful these themes are in the world that we live in. I doubt you could open Instagram, read a newspaper, have a conversation without one of these themes coming up. You introduce yourself, you start telling people things that you think will impress them about you. How can I seem worthy to these people? I want to make a good impression. That's ego. But what energy of that ego is it coming from? And that's what studying and working with the ego and starting to understand what your energy is around the ego starts to illuminate exactly what's authentic for you. I've done so much work around the ego. My unconscious earth sits in the ego center. And so I've done a lot of contemplation around that gate, and I've done a lot of contemplation around the ego, and I've done a lot of observation and awareness work around this theme of competition, proving myself, self-worth, and particularly self-hatred. And all the work that I had to do to decondition, even with a defined ego, that work that I had to do on facing feelings of self-loathing, of self-hatred, of real hard self-criticism to find my own self-worth. It's because it's defined for me. The work that I've done around that center has paid off because it's consistent for me. And by turning something consistent to a higher expression, and certainly with something sitting in a prominent space like my unconscious earth, I'm going to see a lot of bang for my buck for this work that I'm doing. And once we start doing it, you start to feel different. When you turn something that's been in an unhealthy state that you have consistency in and you turn it to a healthy state, you will start to see real results very quickly. And you'll see that simply because it's consistently running well now, rather than consistently running bad. If you had your air conditioning in your house and it's running and running and running, but it's pumping hot air, it's not doing its job. It's not doing it right. It's making it hotter when it's supposed to be cooler. And you can't do that until you fix what's broken in there. And once you get it pumping cool air, then consistency feels good. Consistency feels terrible when it's pumping out the wrong thing. And that's the work that we do with the defined centers. And then the undefined centers, we have to learn to work with, how is this being expressed? And how am I operating from this center when this isn't where I'm meant to operate from? I'm not meant to prove myself, because that causes you to make promises, form alliances, get married, have kids, all those tribal themes that we talk about. If you're trying to prove yourself, you start making those promises, you start forming those alliances, you start doing those things in your life, but it's not really right for you. You did it because you were trying to fit in with the tribe. That's how powerful this can be. So I hope that you liked this. I hope that you're enjoying this series. If you are, let me know on Instagram. Share it with your audience. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to know that you're enjoying this series. I'm really enjoying putting these together because I think the centers are one of the most powerful things in the chart to start to work with, because like I said, you can get such a bang for your buck by understanding what is in balance, what is working well, and what's not. And then it gives you that map to say, now if we turn this dial a little bit to the right, we're going to start seeing some real positive results and positive shifts. So I hope that this is giving you some insight into these themes and how you can start to turn that dial. And if you are wondering about that and you want to go deeper with how this all works together, then please, I invite you to come to the workshop on June 12th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Come to the Activate Your Magnetism workshop, how to 2x your revenue while working less. DM me workshop on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Lano Official to register there, or go to nicolelano.com/workshop and we can register you right on the website. I hope to see you there. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. We will see you in the next episode. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everybody. We'll see you next time. If you love this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community, Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to nicolelano.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.